This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I am here with another wonderful friend, Suzanne Harp, who has an amazing business career, has an amazing career as a mom and a spouse, and as a community leader. Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure. So excited to be with you today.
It's good to see you again. And for those that might be looking at us online, you wore the coolest outfit with the matching purse. I like your style.
Those things are important.
So how'd you get started in business?
Wow. So as a young, college student trying to fight your way and make sure you don't end up with a lot of student debt, I worked my way through college. It took me 7 years, but at the same time, a lot of really good experiences. And I used my athletic ability as a dancer to land with the National Cheerleaders Association.
See, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
You have to tell us more.
So at 22, I was running the Junior Cowboy Cheerleaders, Junior Maverick Dancers program, and then it was helping with the national program. So we had the Chicago Bulls, Atlanta Falcons, and we had 7 NBA and NFL teams.
Impressive.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I am trying. So I've had some contact with Charlotte Jones. I don't know if you know who she is.
She's the best marketer there is on the planet. Yes,
and I'm hoping to have her on the program.
Oh, gosh, she would be wonderful.
What she's built with
That's right.
is just amazing. It's a great opportunity for female athletes to extend their career. So I'm sorry, keep telling us.
Yeah, and so working with the National Cheerleaders Association, we had a lot of opportunities afforded to us, from performing in front of presidents to, going to the Aloha Bowl or Hula Bowl or whatever, and taking kids to New York for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So there was a lot of neat opportunity to mentor from a college perspective. So it was a good transition from working just on camps around the country and special events to then working in the corporate office. And that's what led to the National Junior Pro Program, which they launched as a vehicle to do sponsorships with the NFL and the NBA.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was a good experience, and you got a lot of hard knocks along the way. Being 22, working with the Chicago Bulls and things like that, there's some interesting stories of, just making sure that you're not taken advantage of as a young person in business.
Exactly.
So there were good lessons. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but that was the beginning.
So that's interesting. How did you, and I definitely want to get into your mergers and acquisitions. You have so much experience in working with buying companies and growing companies, but what you just described is fascinating. I've always wanted to know the behind the scenes from a business perspective of being in that segment, the dancing segment.
That's right.
You have some big time dancers, like one of the Lakers dancers that became a big star.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you followed her.
Yes.
Paula Abdul.
Paula Abdul actually taught when I was auditioning for Maverick Dancers, she was one of the lead choreographers that came in and taught one of our
So you met
learning.
her in person?
Yeah, briefly. She probably does not remember
That is so
me.
cool.
But she taught our camp to audition for the position of being a Maverick dancer. So.
That's amazing. And so from 22, though, what lessons do you learn there in making sure that you guard your brand as a dancer and that you're not, I know they travel a lot. Most people don't realize how much work is involved from the practice and the preparation to the actual event, but the event is just the event. It seems kind of short in the scheme of things, but there's a lot of practice behind it.
That's right. You have to stay healthy. You have to know how to train your body, what to eat, what not to eat, and stay mentally sharp, right? And we're also representing the organization of the Mavericks, and when I came on, it was kids' first year is a rookie, right? And so we had the legacy of having Don Carter and the rest of them owning the team and whatnot, and they had a legacy in Dallas that was really a gem. So we had to uphold what that looked like to be good ambassadors. And and things changed over the years, as you know, but when I was there, that's what it was like.
Now, did you get to work or meet Mark Cuban by any chance?
I did not. He was pretty new.
Okay.
He was pretty new, yeah.
Or Ross Perot, I think, may have owned the team before that.
He did. I think my biggest claim to fame one time when I was in the elevator going to and from, the practice and to the court to actually perform, we had Tom Landry, who was in.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember we had just a brief elevator ride together, but I was dying because for me, leadership at a very young age was incredibly important. So I asked him, what was it like to lead such a life of a legacy, and in just a few, and I challenged him in an elevator ride. What was it like, or what could you give me to instill leadership? What were those nuggets you could pass to me as leadership that I could then pass on? And it was very interesting. Basically, show your heart, and if they will follow you if you're authentic and believe you.
That's actually a really great lesson.
Yeah.
So Tom Landry is like golden here in Texas.
Yeah,
Texans love him. They have roads named for him.
That's right.
So the fact that you spent some time with him is a really big deal.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was a short elevator ride, but I'll never forget it.
And it's interesting how those moments can influence our lives.
That's right.
So something as simple as you just coming across him in the elevator has had an impact on you from a business perspective.
That's right. Yeah. He was a beautiful businessman if you think about it, because you have to straddle the delicacy between keeping your owners happy, keeping the fans happy. Can you imagine?
Right.
When you got the Philadelphia Eagles coming in, people were throwing things at you, and he really led a statesman-like persona on the side of the field, of course, with his gorgeous little derby hat and whatnot. But he personified, I think, even to the men on the team, so, and I've had a great opportunity of meeting a lot of the Cowboys that served underneath him. And,
oh, wow.
And having them, ask them the same questions. What was it like to be under Tom Landry's tutelage and to glean his leadership?
Very impressive. So I had no intention of discussing the Cowboys or Landry. I didn't know that. You were hiding that from me. That's fantastic. What a great experience.
Yeah, it was fun.
So how did that transition into your career in the business side? From a investment standpoint, how did you end up getting into finance and investments? And you were vice president of an organization that worked in that realm, so you've done a lot of great things.
That's right. So what's interesting about my background is for a period, and most young moms will do this, they'll have to take off a time to raise their children. Right. So Bill and I took off about 12 years, he supported, right, to homeschool our children in a Judeo-Christian curriculum. It was something that was aligned with our faith. And so once we launched them back, all four of them, we basically launched into the world at the same time in 2016. Our oldest two went to Patrick Henry College. Our youngest two started a hybrid between homeschool and private school. So at that point, I went back into business, and I had to rebuild my career.
Oh, wow.
Well, when your resume is a little bit lacking at that moment, you do whatever you can to be resourceful. So I found whatever startup I could work with and did whatever I could to learn business over again, from marketing, branding, how do we reach. And remember, that's the transition between non-digital and going completely digital.
Right.
So that you're selling a whole different way, the way the public consumes whatever it is. Most of the decision-making by a consumer is 80% is done before they ever even speak to you. So learning all those really valuable tools. I worked with a number of startups. I landed with one that was an international company based out of southern India.
Okay.
And we have, in North Texas, we have a very large Indian population. We're blessed with their work ethic, with their family values, and all the rest. Well, I was very fortunate to work with an individual who wanted to start a brand new a side company inside of a company.
Okay.
So even though he had an existing company, 300 plus employees in India, in the United States, it was brand new. So we launched a digital company together.
Nice.
And that was exciting because, again, the hearken and the beacon of the new digital age, all your data erodes very quickly. So we landed accounts like Penske Logistics, Kelly Services, and many other Fortune 100s.
Those are big companies.
And it was exciting because they were saying you can't do it. And I was like, okay. But what we learned is landing an account with a Fortune 100 is just as difficult as it is landing with a mid-market company. They're the same exact steps.
Right.
The only difference is they have obviously a lot more budget to spend.
Right.
And once you've proven yourself and you continue to add value, they're not going to get rid of you. They'll stay with you. So I ran with I ran with India for 4 years because I would wake up with India, I'd go to bed with India. And I lived on WhatsApp. After that time, it was obviously exhausting because the time difference between the U.S. and India. So I called a few of my clients and I said, I think I need to change jobs so I can have a normal, rhythm.
Right.
And one of my clients said to me, which was generational, he said, you're really good at starting things, and we've watched you for 4 years. Would you come and start a brand new business vertical inside of
wow.
generational? So we did that. We launched their Professional Alliance program, which was communicating with anybody that was business owner facing, building that know, like, and trust with them.
Right.
In the endeavor to try to get the clients that they had that either needed to grow or go to market.
Okay.
So obviously I had been working with the M&A for 4 years before coming on, so it felt like going home in a lot of ways. But in the last 3.5 years, working in M&A taught me that, when you're looking at the cycles of the market, so to speak, and you're looking at what a business owner, that's their biggest asset, how on earth are they going to garnish their hopes and dreams from that sell so that it can fund them through retirement or pass on to their posterity or whatever it is. So it is their most valuable asset they have is their business.
Interesting.
Right? So that's how we got into investment banking, which I love.
So I'd love to come back to that in a moment on because I think there's so much value into founder-led businesses that are small that are thinking about their legacy, right? Some of the owners are aging. They're trying to figure out, do I pass it to the kids? Do I sell it? Like, how do I position? So I'd love to come back to you. And maybe we can discuss some ideas on how you help them position for whatever that future is. But you mentioned hearing a lot that you can't do it when you got into that first startup.
That's right.
I think that's what so many entrepreneurs hear all the time. Tell us what that was like for you, hearing that, and how you overcame it. Like, what was it that inspired you, given that 2 parts, you were just coming back into the workforce as well.
That's
and
right.
that you had this level of strength that says, I can do it, and I'm going to prove it.
That's right.
How did that occur? Where'd you get that strength from?
It came from, I think, when you're a mom and you're raising 4 children, and I was also told we couldn't homeschool correctly. They would be missing, they would be deficient in one way or another. So being very purposeful and prayerful on how you move forward to make sure that the individuals that give you advice, they're not ill towards you. Those are genuine concerns, but in a lot of ways they're projecting their own limitations on you. So have forgiveness for that person that's saying that to you, but also realize that is all that is a projection on you.
Correct.
And so when you look at a business owner who has raised up his business from nothing, they were told the same exact thing. And some of our clients are now 100 million, 500 million. And some of them are very tiny. They're just, very small businesses. But to them, it is their blood, sweat, and tears. So what I tried, to answer your question very specifically, what I try to always remember when somebody is giving you a limitation, right? I mean, you take it as counsel. You take it with a grain of salt because there's wisdom a little bit in that, and that they're identifying to you what the roadblocks are.
Right.
But those are just roadblocks that need to be identified on how you properly maneuver them so you become real agile.
What's interesting? So you mentioned something that I don't think anyone else has stated, and many might not understand. Their hesitation and reservation, it gives you some insight into how to resolve and maybe market towards whatever that reservation is. So it sounds like they're projecting what other people might say as a reservation. So you're learning how to overcome that, not just with them, but maybe in your marketing plan.
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Whenever we position a company to go to market, we always start with the end in mind. Taking a company through due diligence is incredibly excruciating. So when you're going through due diligence, we want to successfully position the company so they're getting the highest ROI at the end. They're getting the highest payout, the highest multiple, all the things. Well, how do you do that? You have to mitigate enough risk for the buyer where the buyer doesn't perceive that risk.
Right.
And they're willing to pay the dollars that the business owner that's selling needs to garnish in order to really transact, right? To have that liquidity event, right? So whenever it's all a mindset, whether it's somebody telling me that I have a limitation, I won't be able to do something, or taking a business owner to market, understanding when they get to the negotiation table, they're going to hear those same type of limiting beliefs on purpose, by the way, to position a lower cost, lower price from a potential buyer. And so I think they're all valuable lessons to learn. the biggest mindset trick I think all business people have to learn, and you'll hear some of the really successful ones, is the more you can protect your peace and not allow people to get into your head unneedingly,
right,
so to speak, then the more successful you are, because that just bogs you down. Or
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, and you're right about WhatsApp, by the way. I'd love to hear more about WhatsApp. I think everyone knows what it is, but what is WhatsApp and why did you use it? Everyone's on an international basis. It's definitely very well used. But
all my international friends are on WhatsApp. It's a way we can speak on the phone, and it's a great connection. The data is more protected there than some of the other applications, but it's an app. It runs a lot like our conventional phone or text messaging on your iPhone or your Android or whatnot, but it's just an application directed towards that. What's interesting about WhatsApp is that, again, the protection of the data is important.
Right.
The phone calls are more clear, the conferencing that you can do. So it is, I think it caught fire in, not only in Europe, but obviously in India and whatnot. So it was a good way for us to communicate. And it's a
Have you invested in WhatsApp by any chance?
No, I'm not. No, but my brother and sister are in Greece today, visiting our family, and that's what I was calling them this morning on WhatsApp.
I love it. So I want to come back to some of your most exciting deals. You mentioned that you've helped to build companies from 100 million to 500 million. But before I come back to that, you mentioned that you were giving advice and told that your kids that you might not homeschool correctly and that your kids wouldn't be successful. Your kids are doing phenomenal. You have a kid in law school. You have another one that just had their first grandchild and doing great things. You have a kid that worked in the U.S. Congress.
That's right.
Your kids are doing phenomenal. So now you don't need to give all the details, but it's important for people to know if they're homeschooling as an option, your kids to do well.
That's right.
You just have to focus on it, and you have to overcome those doubts to make sure that your kids are successful, just like the businesses you represent.
That's exactly right. What I tell everyone, and my in-laws, my mother-in-law cried when she was a preschool teacher, though, and they loved school. My father-in-law and my dad were both engineers. My dad was an aeronautics engineer and worked on the space shuttle. My father-in-law worked for communications on Air Force One. So our family is highly educated, so they came from a concerned point. But what I think about homeschooling, it is, if it's done correctly, is the rich man's education.
Right.
It's how most of our founding fathers were educated. Now, the downfalls are the obvious ones, finding the right friends for your children to be and to hang out with or whatnot. But what I think the positive thing is, and I think all parents, whether you're in public school or not in public school, is the havoc of social media that's playing on kids.
Sure.
So another downfall in homeschooling is, you have to purposefully make sure that those type of hurdles are not used in convenience.
Right.
But I think that any type of parent can do that. Now, the positive things are I hand chose the curriculum. Again, a Christian, Judeo-Christian classical education.
Yes.
So that means the study of Latin, the study of all the ancient philosophers. We would line that up against what the Bible said and said, okay, well, the goal in that was, what is your worldview?
Sure.
And everybody has a worldview.
Right.
Everybody is influenced by one way or another. So it's critically asking yourself, why do you believe what you believe?
Right.
And where does that belief come from?
Right.
Right. And so to be able to defend it. And the interesting thing is that my kids went through a program here that's in McKinney. It was called Worldview. It's a 5-year program.
Okay.
Excuse me. But they would have to argue both their point and the opposite point.
Fantastic.
So in the rhetoric stages, we'd call it.
Right.
So
your kids, it sounds like you gave them good practice at not being shy.
That's right.
You encourage them to go out and have a healthy conversation, which sometimes it's hard for, especially the younger kids today, to have that ability to communicate because they spend so much time on text and in the social media apps that I don't know if that interaction is there. And then we had COVID, at least for me and my kids. They were right in the middle of that COVID era.
That's right.
And
so
they were locked
sad.
away for a while. But
That's
it sounds
right.
like your kids, you encourage that healthy discussion.
What I say to all parents, whether you homeschool or not, when we homeschooled was not to protect them.
Right.
It was to equip them. And we do challenge them. What I think is interesting, the kids, whether they're homeschooled or not, I would say if you're 26, there's a definite break. 26 and older are less inclined to have as many hours on social media. And I think it's really important that we kind of have that discussion as a community right now and what that havoc is having on children. What I've noticed is my younger two boys voluntarily gave up a lot of social media, but it was negatively influencing them, and that's why they did.
Right, makes sense.
And so when you're at home, you just have to be very purposeful about making sure that you're leaning into those God-given gifts that your child has. And I'll give you a very specific example very quickly. My daughter, Haley, is not a math person. My boys were.
Right.
On the SAT, she was going to kill me. She scored a perfect 36 on all the English.
Oh, wow.
Math, not so much.
Okay.
Right. But keep in mind, we should educate to their bent,
strength, right.
to their bent. And and we told her you'll need 3 semesters of mathematics in college, and you need to be able to pass those. But after that, you need to lean into where your strengths are so that you can soar. And I think giving them that kind of freedom is incredibly important. Our oldest, he flew gliders when he was 18.
Flew gliders?
And I did never watch them, and I was praying.
Oh, wow.
Right, but to be trained as a pilot fit very much into his analytical mind.
Okay.
And now he's started a business, and he's building homes. He's on a second home that he's building.
Interesting.
And he's earned the title of preferred builder, I guess,
Wow.
which is something a lot of builders need to have just to get started.
That's amazing. So I worked in home building for a while, so that's pretty
So
neat.
you know
There's a lot into the home building process.
Mm-hmm.
So he flew these little kites without an engine, basically, that you call gliders.
That's right. That's right.
With no engines. Now, I don't know if you've spent any time in Southern California. I lived there for a while.
A little bit.
And they have these gliders, and they jump off the side of these mountains, and they glide around, and they land back on the side of those mountains. So I thought, that will never be me.
Yeah. So his glider was different in the fact that it looked like a small airplane, again, without the engine. And so, I might be classifying it not completely correctly, but you are taken up with an engine. Right.
And then released.
And it's taxi, so to speak, and then released.
Right.
And so the first time, and I never went to watch him because as a mom I had to release that.
Sure.
But it was purposeful. Again, I saw the GoPro. He took a GoPro with him one time. When he was preparing to be married, I found the GoPro and then saw the video, and I was dying going, I can't believe I ever let him do that. It was fantastic.
Yeah. What a great experience, though, from a life perspective.
Yeah. So those are the kind of things that homeschooling can provide. We had the time to do that.
Right.
So
we homeschooled as well, and it gave a lot of freedom to help enrich their learning, their book learning through experience.
That's right.
So you're right about the opportunities there. I wish more people had an opportunity to find a way to really promote that kid's interest, and like you said, lean into what their interests are and what they're gifted at.
That's right. Yeah.
Your business. What was your most exciting deal? Maybe not by name, but what were the circumstances? How large? What was the transition like? What was the most fun from a deal perspective? I've worked on a few deals, and you have one that's kind of a favorite for whatever reason.
The favorites always end up being really more of it's a personality, I think, that the business owner, it can be, I think they think of it as their baby, right?
Agreed.
If you can get them from thinking that way and realizing that it is your largest asset.
It is.
But then if you can help them dream what is next, and so my favorite deals were the ones that we could really influence that seller and to understand that this is not the end of your business career. This is just the end of this chapter and the beginning of another one. I have my favorite one, if I'd have to say, has not gone to market yet. There's 2 older gentlemen. They're both 80 years old. They've had this company their entire life. It's a logistics company, and they had $35 million in EBITDA. After Yellow went under, and that same time frame, their EBITDA dipped quite a bit, almost in half, a little more than half. And they were so determined to get it back to where it was before they sold. And the other reason why it was my favorite is they were so concerned about their employees,
Right.
the legacy of that company. So my favorite ones are when you really get to work closely with the client to see what does it take to build that business?
Right.
What does it mean to give up that business? And what does it mean to go on to your next phase of life? So I really like to serve the client in that way. And I think it's probably my mothering instincts in that, but just to make sure they're taken care of. Some of the other favorite ones I think are, I'm working on one right now that's, she's out of the UK. And again, it's a story. She built her business because she was told she had cancer, but she did not. And so she leaned into anything and everything women's health.
Okay.
So predicting, she can't say AI, but it is very predictive in the data harnessing of what a woman goes through from anything from prepubescent all the way through past menopause.
Wow.
And the things that go into protecting women's health.
Yes.
So her application, it's a SaaS application. She's in her second round of VC funding or will go to market there shortly thereafter. But the predictive analytics that will go behind it, they will be able to do face recognition if a woman is ovulating or not. It is absolutely incredible. So
Amazing.
Those cutting edge ones that I know will benefit humanity tend to be my favorite ones.
I love it. How close is she to that next step in the business?
Well, we are actively going to be pushing her to market.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, and what's interesting is she's the first one I'm getting to really do on my own because she's what we call pre-revenue.
Right.
So the traditional iBank will not take her.
Right.
So again, it is back to my original story where they're saying, well, we can't do that or you won't be able to do that. Well, a couple of phone calls to family offices that I have done, strategic partners, pharmaceutical companies that I know that are growing, compound pharmacists, lower ones that I know that are growing. All of a sudden, I have what I think we'll have a bidding war on. On this. So I think she might be my favorite one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's and what's interesting when we talk about the internet and the digital phase, she literally found me on LinkedIn.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And she's in the UK, so we use WhatsApp.
That is incredible. So that next phase, maybe the both of you can come on our show and discuss what she's doing. I would love to hear her story and how she reached that. So what happened to the cancer that she didn't have? Do you have any insight?
Without getting into her medical background, if I understand correctly, it's probably more of endometriosis than it is of anything else, right? But just like any health issue, you have all these symptoms, but some of them actually stem off of inflammation from another symptom, right?
Exactly.
So you just really don't know. And her main, I think, driving point was she was a young woman, and most of the information that was coming to her was from a man's perspective, right? And it's not that I want to play this gender war. I'm not into that at all. But I think that experience of actually understanding what a woman's body goes through is too important to not have those voices in the room when you're developing something for a woman's health.
Right.
So,
I guess the underlying beauty of what occurred, although unfortunate, is that it led her to create this company.
That's right.
That can change the lives of so many people.
Right.
So it spurred her to do so. I know we're nearing the end of our program, but I'd love to get your insight, just kind of a quick question format, some of your favorites. The 2024 Olympics seems pretty exciting. Do you have a favorite Olympic sport?
Well, gymnastics, 100% always. Okay. I think they're big because it's very much parallel with my dance background. And when I look at these ladies, and I know for a fact what it took to get there. And if you look at the evolution of gymnastics from the 94 Olympics to the 2024 Olympics, the athlete in gymnastics has become, they look more healthy.
They do. Yeah.
They are stronger physically. There's more diversity, and all cultures are represented now. And you look at them, and they're able to push the human body more than we were then. And you have to sit here and think it is a lagging indicator, if you will, of now when you're looking at 2024 Olympics, it's because the opportunities that those young girls were given over those decades of being in the gym, right? A very short story I'll give you. One of my friends worked with Bella Corolla.
Oh.
She was on his staff, right? I asked her, were you Olympic bound? She goes, no, I was elite bound. She was very humble.
Right.
But she said that Bella told them in one of his camps, and he's here in Texas now, that he saw that evolution coming. And it's fun to know that backstory. I don't know him, but it's fun to know that backstory. And he knew that was coming.
Amazing.
And to see it in fruition now, and to know, I think that we should celebrate that. That's a way that global influence has come on all of our beautiful sports. That now it's opened up, because what does sports do for kids?
Brings them
it
together.
Changes your mind. It changes your body. It changes your work ethic. It does. I'm a big fan of.
I love it.
All things sports.
I love it. Did you see the gymnast from Brazil and the final floor routine? She was incredible.
Beautiful.
Absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
And we saw Simone Biles earlier this year, and then we saw her at the last Olympic trials. She is the greatest.
They're beautiful. I mean, I don't know. I'm just so intrigued with the athleticism that goes behind. You have to make it look like it's effortless, but it's.
They make it look easy.
Yeah.
Now, my daughter was a gymnast. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
She was in the gym from 7:30 in the morning to 5:30, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
But one of the signs that I reminded her of that she had forgotten was in her gym. In one of her gyms, they had a sign at the top of the gym that described gymnastics as, in quotes, the art of perfection. Yeah. So they're trying to achieve perfection, and then the gymnasts, the way they're scored versus getting points like in basketball when you make a basket. Theirs is how close did you come to perfection, and then they take points away based upon that barometer of perfection. But in the gymnast said the art of perfection.
Yeah.
So I think she wrote an essay in her college application based on that concept of the art of perfection. So I agree with you. Gymnastics is a lot of fun. Did you know they had 3-on-3 basketball and they have the breakdancing as a part of the Olympics now?
Right.
It's changed so much, but I love the track and field still.
Track and field is beautiful as well. If you think about it, oh my heavens, I was watching one clip and the runner fell and everybody just ran right past him. And you know what they're thinking. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the finish line. Keep your eye on the finish line. But your heart breaks for that person who fell. So, but it is such a beautiful allegory of life.
It is.
Right?
It is.
I love what Alex Morzozzi said recently. He's a very famous businessman. He sold Gym Launch. I'm probably not saying his last name properly, but they had a $100 million exit for developing gyms.
Okay.
And the launch of gyms. So it's a fantastic concept. And of course, it goes into my athleticism. But he says, you know what? If you just don't quit, you cannot help but win eventually.
Right.
Just don't quit.
It's amazing. Yeah. And on that note, Suzanne, it's wonderful having you on the program.
Thank you.
A lot of great insight for our listener. Hopefully we'll have you back soon.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for joining Ronnie Spellman on Business Decoded.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.